Hello, everyone. We are
Don't mess with the
Mommas,
Mommas.
Mommas, with our motto.
You
You are
are
the
the
protagonist
protagonist
of
of
your
your
life,
life,
not
not the
the victim
victim
of
of your
your destiny.
destiny.
And we are on season 2 now
Right.
because we completed 1 year with our wonderful interview with Boaz, our Gen Alpha. So this is our third episode of season 2.
Two.
Hello.
Uh-huh.
And we're talking about something a little bit heavier this time. It's called trauma talk. And just to, we like to talk about things that relate to everyone, and everyone has trauma. And I think the more we get to understand that, the more we'll feel, okay, this person understands me. I'm not alone. I'm connected. We all experience, and it doesn't matter how much money you have or what background you have or whatever, everybody has some form of trauma. So last time we talked about ego. Ouch, my ego. And it really does hurt when your ego is hurt, right? Ouch.
True.
So to connect it a little bit before we get into talking about trauma, and we'll share lots of examples about that. The small ego, or the lesser self, always says, why did this happen to me? Like, why am I a victim? And our motto, we say it all the time,
Yeah.
ad nauseum, right?
Yeah.
You are the protagonist, not the victim
Of your life.
of your life. So it internalizes the trauma as proof of being permanently broken, worthless, or forever separate from happy people. Out of fear of being hurt again, it completely shuts out others, or you become hyper defensive. And we know people like that. We may be that kind of person, where you're just so afraid to open yourself up because of past trauma. However, the greater ego, or the greater self, acknowledges the immense pain, but says, I will not let this define me. Because I survived this, I will use my life to become a beacon of hope for others walking this exact dark path. It transforms a personal wound into a unique life-saving mission. So whatever we go through, the most negative, we can use, as a springboard to encourage others. And just to share some, examples, and we can relate to all of this, I'm sure, and some can relate all of these or a few of these, but there's interpersonal violence and abuse, like physical attacks, domestic abuse, sexual assault, harassment, stalking, childhood emotional neglect, big biggies. Doesn't matter what your financial situation
True.
is, or, it transcends all that. Or accidents, and we'll share some of that, that you've had. That can be really traumatic, scary as heck, and I'm going to share something. Disasters or mass violence. I can't even imagine people living in places where there's
War.
war. I mean, my gosh, how horrific. Or wildfires, knowing that your whole life is about to be destroyed, your home. And human-caused, crisis like terrorism also, and war. And then loss, sudden loss and grief of, unexpected death, or even divorce, or, an end of a relationship, all of those. So, and there's acute and chronic and complex trauma, but that's enough info. What do you want to share about trauma? Yeah.
Well, it's something that can be generational.
Yep.
It
What do you mean?
Meaning that from one generation to the next, it carries over. If you've been abused, you'll probably abuse your kids because that was the way you were raised.
That's all you know.
That's all you know. If you never saw anything different, then you just don't know. That's not the way that you go. That's not the way you should be. The effects of that will come back, one way or the other. It can be, and it's not just on the personal level, it's also on a societal level.
For sure.
COVID-19, that was a trauma. People probably still haven't overcome that. The Native Americans, African Americans, but everybody has been traumatized in one way or another. So we're all suffering from trauma.
And I think even the times we're living in now, there's such a stress on making people live in the state of fear and hopelessness, and the economy, I mean, just, worrying about whether you can feed yourself or your kids. So, I mean, living in that state is so horrific, but the challenge is not to be swayed, because that's the goal. That's the goal of a lot of people in power, is to make you stay in that state of hopelessness or fear. You've got to rise above that. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Even,
Right.
when we're in the middle of war, to have that spirit, I will survive, I will overcome, and I'll use this to become so much stronger and so much more caring and connected to others' suffering. Yeah.
Better, better.
Yeah, yeah.
It's when we're not aware, they say that there's darkness in life. You think you're walking around, you see the light, you think you're awake, but you can't tell what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
You just can't see that. You only have now. But what you do now has an effect. And if you're doing something that's wrong, then it's going to show up. It may take years for it to show up. So, the whole thing with trauma is like, what do we do to traumatize other people? Are we traumatizing other people? Are we traumatizing our children? What are we doing?
I can share. So when I was little, it's in my book, A Day in the Next, A Journey from Brooklyn to Buddhism. Um, so I had like a lot of experiences that I repressed, and that's why we have therapy is such a big deal, because, if something so painful occurred, you might just deny it totally. And what's interesting is, having taught psychology, you could even have physical symptoms, like there's blindness, temporary blindness. I never even realized this until I started studying and teaching psychology, because there's something in your life that's so painful that you actually get physically blind as a result, or deafness, temporary deafness from a traumatic event. And I remember, or I don't remember, some things that happened in my childhood. I remember vaguely that our family was at a summer house, and the place, my family was saying, "Oh, look, there are fire engines." When you're little kids, you love seeing a fire engine. It was our summer place that we were renting burned down. So we had nothing. And what I remember is, I was really upset because my sister had a really cool paisley shirt, and I couldn't wait to inherit that. And that was burned. Like, I still remember that blue paisley shirt. But then we had to stay at a neighbor's, and I just remember somebody, a man, a tall man, coming into the room. That's all I remember. And then there's another occasion that happened, two other occasions. We had a back door, and my sister and I shared a bedroom, and there was a back door to the bedroom, and there's stairs. So a burglar came in the back door, and I was a light sleeper. I was only around 4 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. And all I remember is he turned to me and went, "Shh." So I was paralyzed with fear. And all throughout my childhood, I had so many headaches, and I think that was the origin. And not only fear, but guilt that I couldn't do anything to stop this guy from, stealing stuff from my parents, who had nothing, and took all this jewelry and stuff. So that was like, I was scared to death. And then the third is, I used to sleep over my grandmother's house. And I don't know if she had ghosts or what, but I used to hear, noises in the kitchen, like around 3 in the morning, like dishes. And I think it was my grandfather, who was drunk, coming home late, so that was pretty traumatic. So all of those things, when I think back about, issues that I've had throughout my life, certainly a lot stems from that, but who knows what the effect of those causes are. We don't know, but we just know that our body has internalized it, and all these diseases that we get, besides the stupid food that we eat,
Yes.
right? It's, a lot has to do with the childhood experiences that we can't,
We've buried them so deep we
we've
can't remember,
buried.
but those
Yeah.
things are active in your life. They make you make decisions that you
Yes.
may not may not be the best decisions for you because that stuff is running the show subconsciously, you know. What I was going to say is that the trauma is also a physical thing. And there was a doctor, I think she was a psychoanalyst, and she said that, you know, when we've been traumatized or say we've had an accident, around, there's an anniversary. And you can start responding to that anniversary, you know, either maybe get depressed or maybe cry or, you know, something about it happens. Now I know when a certain time of the year, like going from September, October, November, this is the time when we lost people, you know.
And your
One
family.
was tragic, other one was, you know, my mother was going to pass away, but it was like when this time of year comes around, September, October, you know, my sister will get depressed. She'll start to feel more like she wants to cry, you know, or I'll have, you know, certain times of the year, just August, April used to be my time when it was, everything would happen in April. It was a terrible month. Now that's changed. I don't even think about that. Now April is a different kind of situation for me, you know. So, but it can shrink your brain, make it can have effects on your thinking, and so.
Let me share. When I when we opened up our first restaurant, and I'm a terrible driver, as everybody knows. And fortunately, my husband is a wonderful driver, and I don't have a sense of direction. I don't know which lane a person is in if I look behind. Anyway, but we were driving home 2 weeks after we opened the restaurant. I was driving, my son at the time was like 6 years old. He was in the back seat, and it was like 11:30 at night. And all of a sudden, as I was turning the corner to our home, I saw these blaring lights, and it kind of freaked me out because we lived in a very quiet environment. So instead of putting my foot on the brakes, I put my foot on the gas and went straight into a tree. And fortunately, there was a couple right behind us who lived in the area, and they were able to call EMS. Of course, my husband immediately started shouting at me, and I had broken my ankle. I couldn't even move. But after that experience, I didn't know if I was living or dead for the longest time. I was like in the in-between state because like I had blown all my adrenals, and when you have like a flight or fight experience, you just blow your adrenal glands because that's what you do to protect yourself. So for the longest time, you know, I didn't know, you know, really I was sure like, is this the in-between state? Is this what happens, you know, when you're about to die or you've died?
Yeah.
And then the day that it occurred, I would always get, it was June 23rd, I would always get so nervous about June 23rd. And the interesting thing is our son got his license on June 23rd, 5 years later. So, you know, I have to like turn that around, you know, but still I fear the 23rd number, and I think that's a weird number anyway. But yeah. But you know, so trauma really takes weird, you know, it takes a weird course on your nervous system, on everything. And people have panic attacks, you know, and they don't know when it's going to come on, but something subconscious or unconscious.
I remember being in a car accident, and also how protected I was at the same time. But after that car accident, I was very nervous about crossing the street, and I'm still nervous today about crossing. Quickly, let's get across the street quickly. You know, let's not dawdle. What's the best way to cross the street? You know, so that has stayed with me. You know, so because I saw what a car accident can do to a human body.
Oh my
you know,
gosh,
so.
yes. So, Daisaku Ikeda, SGI President Daisaku Ikeda, and we've talked a lot about him in the past because he's had so many encouraging things to say. And, so he said, how do we deal with trauma? Because it's everybody, as we just said, individual, collective. I mean, everybody has some form, even if we're not even aware
That's
of
true.
it. And it's generational, as you said, absolutely. And it's collective, we all experience,
And it's
right?
probably lifetime to lifetime too.
Absolutely, lifetime to lifetime, yeah. So what he said is that rather than say, why did this happen, to ask, how can I use this to create value? This process of changing, and when we talk about changing karma into mission, turns personal victory over past trauma into a beacon of hope for others. He also said to really be kind to yourself, addressing self-doubt and shame that often accompany trauma, because there's a lot of shame, especially if you've been abused,
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm peace-loving, but if I meet anybody who's been abusive to children, I will go ballistic. So avoid self-condemnation and advance at your own pace, right? And so applying these, to really develop your inner resilience and break the isolation of trauma by offering encouragement to others. And when people, share their trauma, then, once you say it out loud, it's not like this horrible thing anymore. You've experienced it. And so many of these, organizations that we have, it's all about dialogue and sharing, so that you can get it out into the open.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else
Let's
that you
see
want
if
to
I can
share,
see
or
anything
I'll
else.
share encouragement. Anything else you want to share?
Okay, so there's a shift from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. What happened to you, instead of blaming somebody for their trauma.
And blaming
What-
yourself.
Yeah.
Don't blame yourself.
What can you do to do that? And then let's see. I guess that's about it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be permanent.
No, it's definitely not
You
permanent.
can change it. And the thing about your genes, they're working on epigenetic. So you can. I remember Lyndon Johnson say you could even change your DNA, and I was like, what? So I think like your thoughts can have a tremendous effect on your body and your psychology and
Absolutely.
everything like that.
We used to say, and we don't use tapes anymore, right? But we say, change. If you have like that recording in your head,
That's right.
change it. You keep on hearing the same thing and same thing. Take it out. Put a new tape or recording device or whatever. Put a new record in. So that it starts giving you positive messages.
And the other thing, a friend of mine was telling us about how, speaking can rewire your brain. Just speaking out, you have a thought, okay, change it, speak out what the opposite of that would be, and it helps you to rewire.
And we have no problem speaking, as
No.
you could tell. You can talk about the poor people we live with. We don't stop
quiet as a
talking.
mouse, except when I'm with her.
Anyway, next time we actually are talking about something much funnier, because we talked about some heavy duty topics, the ego, and then now trauma. So we're the next time we're going to talk about barks of wisdom, because dogs know it all. Dogs know it all. So to end with some encouragement, right? Those who have suffered the most deserve the greatest happiness. Those experiencing the harshest karma can embrace the noblest mission and fulfill it. And we always say, as Buddhists, we always say, the heavier your karma, the heavier your mission. So when somebody like has some difficulty in their life, like if they lose a job, we say, oh, congratulations, because it's an opportunity to expand your life, stretch your life, and find out have new experiences. We are not defeated by adversity, but by the loss of the will to strive. Well, I'm going to read that again. We are not defeated by adversity, but by the loss of the will to strive. However devastated you may feel, so long as you have the will to fight on, you will surely triumph.
In the end.
In the end, in
That's
the
right.
beginning,
Yeah,
in the between,
in the middle, in every place.
everything. Yeah,
That's right.
So don't forget.
Oh, we are.
Don't mess with the Mommas, Mommas, with our motto.
You are the protagonist of your life,
not
not
the
the victim
victim
of
of
your
your destiny.
destiny.
Find us on all platforms. You could see us, you could hear us, and you can dance. Keep on dancing. I don't know.
Yeah. And we're on Spotify, YouTube, all the major platforms. Yeah,
TikTok,
TikTok.
Instagram, Substack,
Yeah, Blue
everything.
Sky.
And don't forget, we publish every Wednesday.
Okay.
So
Okay.
take care.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Until
Bye
next
for
time.
now. Until
Bye
we
bye.